Dividends, I love you. Hi, I'm John McNeil, and this is the Invest Strong Network. Welcome. So, for the last 22 years or so, I've been on really an amazing investment journey. And in the last few months, I've had the opportunity to share that journey with other friends, family members, not only through this particular YouTube channel, but also on a one-to-one basis as I've helped them construct their portfolios. Now, one thing that I have told them over and over again, and I've mentioned it also repeatedly through the Invest Strong Network, I've emphasized the importance of dividend paying stocks. Now, dividends are basically a form of profit sharing. So these publicly listed companies, they make profits. They will then either quarterly or some even monthly, they'll chop up the dividends and send out the pieces to their shareholders. Now, you as an investor / shareholder, you can either take that dividend in cash form or direct deposit it in your bank account, or you can have it reinvested to buy more shares of the underlying stock and thus contribute to a faster overall growth of the particular investment that you've made. Now, the question becomes, though, inevitably, should I have the dividends paid out to me in cash form, or should I reinvest them, right? Well, it all depends. Right? Depends on where you are in the course of your investment journey. Now, if you are a beginner, I would, and I've made this clear to all the persons that I've worked with, that if you are a beginner, I would definitely have all of the dividends reinvested. Because after researching my returns over the last 22 or so years, I have come to one absolutely inescapable conclusion, that dividend reinvestment will make up between 35 and 50% of the total return of a stock investment over time, right? 35 to 50% of the total return. Now, that will be absolutely critical for long-term investors. Now, you may say, well, but Brother John, if I have the dividend paid out in cash, I could have used that cash to maybe make another investment somewhere else. Yes, and that's absolutely correct. But I prefer to use empirical evidence here, right? Not what could be or maybe. I'm talking about what actually happened. And I'm telling you, for the brother man, those dividend reinvestments has made up just a ginormous portion of my total return, right? Now, some may say, but wait, the stocks that I'm interested in or that I've seen, some of them only pay a 1.5 to 2.5% dividend. What's that? Correct. If you look at a dividend payout in any given year, it's really not that impressive, right? Because even the high dividend payers, I mean the very highest really are maybe 5 to 7%, and for many of those companies that's unsustainable, right? So if you look at a single digit dividend return, you say, well, that's just not that much. And that's true in a single year viewpoint. But if you stretch that out over 10 years, over 15 years, over 20 years, over 30 years, wow, does that 1.5 to 2.5 to 3% dividend, wow, that really begins to stack up, right? And you do get that snowball effect that you may have heard from other investment pros as it relates to dividend investment. Believe me, the snowball effect is absolutely true, right? It's absolutely true. I've certainly seen it. My biggest winners over the last 2 decades or so have all been dividend paying stocks, and those dividends have made up a huge portion of that total return. All right. So I would suggest for new beginners, reinvest all dividends. Now, what about persons who are, shall we say, more advanced in their investment journeys? Well, of course, it depends on what your priorities are in life. I mean, if you have a family, or if you're in the housing market, or perhaps you have some kind of critical medical bills or something like that, you may need your dividends spun out to you in cash. All right? There's no sin there, no sin in that. Have it spent out in cash, and you can use that cash to take care of other things, other priorities that you have going on in your life. And the good news is, even if you take the dividend in cash form, you still have the underlying shares, which hopefully will be appreciating in value over the long term. So really, there's no way you could come out a loser under those circumstances. Now, I will say this, and I have said this about the high dividend paying stocks. Look out, because many of the very highest dividend paying stocks, and we're talking about companies that pay from 6, some of them to as high as 9% in dividend payouts. First of all, I would say in this current environment with the CV-19 pandemic still raging and so many things that are uncertain, inflation really beginning to increase, I just don't know if any company could sustain a dividend that large over the long run, right? And once these companies begin to cut the dividend, which they absolutely have the power to do at any time, their management, their board of directors can decide to cut a dividend because the payout is too high. But when these companies begin to cut the dividend, their share prices will go straight into the ground, right? So look out for the very high paying dividend payers. Often those dividends are not sustainable, and you end up getting paid a high dividend for 1 or 2 years, but then your underlying investment is cut in half or something like that, and that is absolutely not what you want. Also, I would caution, be careful of high dividend payers that are in, shall we say, questionable industries. Now, me personally, I have invested in REIT stocks. I love REITs. REITs are beautiful, but there is a subcategory of REIT stocks called the mortgage REITs. So these mortgage REITs don't really hold underlying real estate. Instead, they hold mortgages and financial instruments that are related to real estate. Now, in the great financial crisis of 2008 to 2010, those mortgage REITs just got almost wiped out, right? And in fact, I lost virtually all of my investment in those things. And even today, even after a resurgence, they are extremely volatile, and they just don't have the gravitas, let's say, that an underlying REIT that holds real estate does. So now these mortgage REITs, they have some of the highest dividends. I mean, 7% plus on the dividend yield. But no, I'll pass. And just my opinion, right? My opinion, pass. Take a pass on those. But the rest of them, if there are operating companies that you see, and there are lots of them out there, industrial companies, REITs, and other stocks with a dividend yield of, shall we say, 2 to 4%, and the company itself is stable and strong with a history of dividend sustaining payouts, go for it, right? All right, so those are my thoughts for this week. If you've appreciated it, please hit that thumbs up button. Do it for the brother man. I'd appreciate it. Also, please leave a comment. Let me know your experience in dividend investing and reinvesting. Let me know how it's worked out for you. And of course, subscribe to Invest Strong. Thank you so much, and good blessings.